Okay, well, I think we're at starting time and want to get right into it. So thank you everyone who has joined us so far. We're so excited to have you here. I'm Claire from Mira's community team if we haven't met before. And today we're going to be learning more about the stories, the ideas, and the tools that can better help us navigate ambiguity together. So just to kick it off, I'm going to introduce our amazing speakers, Frankie and Maureen. Frankie Koch is the founder of the Creative Gym, a learning design consultancy that helps organizations create impactful virtual learning experiences. Some of the strategies, programs, and toolkits that the Creative Gym has designed have really empowered positive change in the education space and were featured by the U.S. Department of Education, Miro, and Stanford University. Maureen Carroll, PhD, is the founder of Lime Design. Lime Design builds future-ready creative thinkers through experiential learning, workshops for teachers and K through 16 students. Carroll has taught at Stanford D School for over a decade and was a lecturer at Stanford University's Graduate School of Education. She was also the director of Red Lab, which conducts research on the intersection of both design and learning. Laura McBain is the managing director of the Stanford D School and the co-director of K-12 Lab. Unfortunately, she was supposed to join today, but is feeling a little bit under the weather. But we're super excited to hear from both Frankie and Maureen. And with that, I'll hand it over to them to kick off the session. And I'll go ahead and share my screen, Frankie, as well.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Claire. Let's get started. Well, welcome everyone and nice seeing you. So we start by going through a simple Euroboard. Claire, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah. One thing, Frankie, I'd love to be able to see the chat, which is a little bit tricky if I'm screen sharing. Is there any way that you can do it on your end, or is kind of the functionality not working?
Okay, sure.
Okay, cool.
All right, so welcome everyone. If you are here, can you please insert your name in one of the navigation ambiguity guide? So to claim your personal space, just insert your name, just like what we have done here. I insert my name as Frankie, and so that you can actually follow us along the journey and share your story while we present. So to kickstart, I'm just share the Creative Gym is we create virtual learning experiences to unlock the creative power within you to navigate complex challenges through design. And we will start the session with a really simple activity. We experience an ambiguous moment together and make it tangible at Miro. So, and you're welcome to join us through chat, paper, and pen as well. If you don't have a chat, paper, and pen now, welcome to be prepared. All right. So, has everyone? Yep, you're welcome to write at a companion guide as well. It's a bot to share it. Okay. So how this exercise works is really simple. We'll experience an ambiguous moment together, and you make this space make it tangible with simple tools. For example, Miro Pen tool, you can draw it out, or you can use a Miro library icon to make it tangible. Ultimately, you can actually get Google Images to share that ambiguous moment as well. I will pass it to Maran to kick off and the next session.
Great. So we're going to have that moment together of ambiguity so that we can have a firsthand experience of what it feels like in the workplace, in schools, and in life. So to begin, I'd like you to draw a skateboard, but a skateboard that has feet instead of wheels. So take about a minute and a half to do that. So you're drawing a skateboard that has feet instead of wheels. And hope you're having fun doing that. Great. Our next activity is, and our next task is, draw a house, but a house that's made out of hot dogs, ice cream, and lollipops. You're going to draw a house made of hot dog, lollipops, and ice cream. Okay, and our last exercise is draw a silly monster that loves to eat sweets. A silly monster that loves to eat sweets. And remember, you can be drawing in pen and paper or any of the tools that Frankie shared a moment ago. Now we think about, like, why do we do an exercise like this? Why do we begin a session on navigating ambiguity with something that seems very lighthearted, very not clear? But the idea is we asked you to create something that doesn't exist so that you would have that moment of maybe not really sure how to do it because no one really knows how to draw a skateboard that has feet instead of wheels. It's an ambiguous task, and we wanted you to experience that feeling of what is it like to not really know how to move forward. Frankie, I'm going to hand it back over to you now that we've completed this exercise on navigating ambiguity.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Maurice, for sharing. As we can see at the board, there are a lot of people in creative exercises. And I can't believe you all just drew this in 2 minutes. And those are amazing. So
Definitely.
As we move forward on the next activity, so let's go through, sorry. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So let's reflect on the ambiguous moments that Carol shared with us, Maureen shared with us. How do you feel as you engage in the task? On two spectrum, that would you say you avoided or embraced this ambiguity, or do you land somewhere in the middle? Please play a post-it or share us on the chat on the spectrum to reflect on the experience. I give an example. For example, maybe you find it exciting that you can try different ways to make the drawing tangible. So you place it at a spectrum of embrace ambiguity. Or you feel frustrated that you didn't know what to do. So you can place it at avoid ambiguity. Right. Feel free to drop at the chat as well. Or the mirror board. Awesome. I'd like to really ask tons of questions to get clear of ambiguity. That's a great chat there.
So Frankie, there was lots of range of people's reactions, it looks like, from where they're placing the Post-it notes, whether they're really on the avoid versus embrace continuum.
Mhm. Yeah, seems like some of them are in the middle as well. Some of them embrace ambiguity. Yeah. What about a chat?
Yeah, I mean, some great responses. People are talking about being collaborative. Also, I'm thinking about it's freeing. They have no boundaries. Thought it was fun. Linda was talking about how you feel a little frustration because you're not a good drawer, which is common because you feel like it's something don't quite know how to do, and especially if you're using a tool that you haven't used before to do that. Ian mentioned that it's freeing, like because he kind of embraced the ambiguity. There's sort of no constraints. And Cynthia is mentioning how it's sort of doing it together, sort of put a different spin on it, which I thought was really interesting because we don't think about that collaborative, ambiguous experience. Sometimes we think about it's just something that we experience individually.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
mentioning like sort of it's low pressure, which is true. Like there is no way to draw that skateboard or that monster. And Alejandro said that he's knowing the result would not be perfect. So it was a fun task. So that you see that when we think about ambiguity and we talk about the why of ambiguity, one of the things that we wanted to highlight is this idea that you are going across a spectrum from avoiding ambiguity into embracing ambiguity. And one of the reasons we can think about that with a metaphor about river rafting. So once you get into a river and you're on your watercraft, you're going down a river, you really don't have a clear plan because you're always responding to what's happening in that moment. And that is your immediately embracing and experiencing ambiguity because you have to respond to what's happening. And what that allows you to do is to make a shift to something that's really, really important, is from being a problem solver to a problem finder. When you linger in ambiguity and you stay in that problem space longer, it gives you an opportunity to think about, are you solving the right problem? It allows you to take kind of a diverse perspective on things, like making sure that's really important. And that's why we say, don't jump immediately. Our default is always, here's the problem. Let's get out of ambiguity as soon as possible and solve the problem. But our goal in navigating ambiguity is to make sure that you're solving the right problem. To do that, it requires you to think about different skills. And those skills are like, how adaptable are you being when you're thinking about the why of ambiguity? How curious are you? Are there lots of other things you may not have considered or new avenues that you might take that you miss when you go right from getting out of ambiguity as quickly as possible? It also allows you to maybe reframe a problem in ways that you hadn't thought of before. And that reframe can set you on a very different path than you first set out to move along. The other possibility is it allows you to challenge assumptions. And that's a really, really important part of problem solving. Like, is this always the way that we did it? Or maybe can we think of something differently? And being able to have that skill to effectively navigate the ambiguity of a complex problem is really important. The idea also that it gives us kind of an opportunity to grow when we think about the ability to navigate ambiguity. We have different ways of thinking, different ways of approaching things, and we think about the context of that problem that we're trying to solve as well. We think about the thoughts that happen around it, the content knowledge. We think about the emotions surrounding it, sort of in people mentioning that there is sort of that discomfort because we're sort of conditioned to expect we're the expert. We're supposed to know how to get ourselves out of this ambiguous situation. So let's think about, on that continuum of avoiding to embrace, there's something about avoiding it. There's something about enduring it, which is sometimes before we can get to embracing it, we kind of have to go through that struggle and the mess around, this is something I have to endure, this discomfort with not knowing what the answer to my problem is. But ultimately, what you're hoping is that when you recognize that ambiguous moment, like stay in that discomfort, then you think about what are the ways to get me out of it. And it's almost not a this or that proposition. Sometimes you're moving out of it and then you're going back and forth. It's a very, think about the river metaphor. It's a constantly evolving process. It allows you to rethink when you move forward, like how else can I think about this problem? Like we want to rethink our relationship to ambiguity and rethink the actual ambiguity surrounding the problem. And ultimately, what it allows us to do is reimagine what role can navigating ambiguity play in problem solving, and looking about thinking that it's always an iterative process and that we have the creative confidence to be able to move ourselves from problem finding to problem solving and be where we need to be as we respond to problems collaboratively with our coworkers, and as we individually think about how to say, how can I navigate ambiguity?
Thanks much for sharing.
Great. And now we're going to have you, Frankie, you're going to move us to another part of the Miro board. Is we're going to think about an ambiguous experience that you have experienced personally. Like what are some stories that you may think of? To start that, Frankie is going to share his story.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. So I'll start sharing my story of navigating ambiguity when studying the creative stream and how I use Miro to endure, engage, and embrace ambiguity. So when I first started the creative stream, it was 2020, the height of pandemic, and there's a lot of uncertainties and worries and tensions. The teachers are thinking whether the school is locked down. People like you and I are thinking if there'll be lockdowns that happen and so on. So with all this negativity and things that happens, I'm curious, what if we can actually use our creative powers within us to solve the problems, and also having others to join on journey, and just having these simple questions like how might we cultivate our confidence to tackle tough challenges and inspire others to embark on a creative journey. Ask the question, but how do I deal with this ambiguity that's happening? Miro gave me that tools and power to do that. I started with a really simple prototype of just sticky notes and picture that shows how does a dream looks like, how does people coming together looks like, and that little bit of clarity and make it tangible helped me to endure ambiguity, getting past the unknown stages, not knowing, and inviting people to join me along the journey. After that, I was able to prototype different experiences and use Miro to create problem solving. There's so much different ambiguity that we face, but if we can engage it with the right tools, um, these are endless possibilities for us to solve problems, um, research, and getting through it. And lastly, after I've been through this process, I realized that it's not just about me. It's also about the other people. So we shared our experiments, learnings, and frameworks out into public at Euroverse, the community library at Euro, so that other people can use our workflows and tools to help create changes around them as well. So this is my journey of endure, engage, and embrace ambiguity. I'm curious what yours, and pass back to Marin.
Yeah. So we're going to have you reflect on your own navigating ambiguity experiences and think about some of these times. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's in the workplace, sometimes it's in interpersonal relationships. Think about those moments, and you can add them in the chat. You can add them on your personal space on the Miro board, and think about things like times when your experiences were unclear. You didn't really know what steps to move forward. We'd love to hear some of your personal experiences around ambiguity.
That's great. Marin, how much time do we have?
We have about 2 minutes to do that.
All right.
And then we'll talk about some of them. And then Claire, maybe you can share some of them out with us and what you see on the boards.
Absolutely. And feel free to add them either to your guys' boards or in the chats. We'd love to hear them. I'm going to start just reading out a few from the board that I'm seeing. Oh, we got one in the chat from Maureen. Thank you for sharing, Maureen. Trying to learn how to surf, which was very difficult trying to listen to the teacher and actually stand up. Totally can relate to that. I once tried a surf class and had a very similar experience. Jumping into the boards, it sounds like someone had a problem, Jesse, where they were given a project without a ton of direction from the business, and generally it was very unclear, and eventually had to scale back the team, and did use Miro to clean up this ambiguity over what needed to be developed first with the project. Super glad.
That happens so many times, Claire, like at the beginning of a project when you really want these like really tightly scripted directions of how to move forward. That happens quite often, and really being able to navigate that, that's challenging.
Absolutely. I think we've all been there, and hearing that Miro was helpful is really exciting. Also, reading another one is from Leah, who is starting to work with a new team in a new job and didn't really know how the team collaborated. So just trying to contribute and learn at the same time.
And I see Ashton added to the chat too about working with stakeholders. We don't know what's happening in the beginning, but we need to keep moving forward within that ambiguity, which can be really uncomfortable. Yeah, thank you so much, Ashton, for pulling that out, because we sometimes forget about the emotions surrounding that, right? We know that we have to move forward. We have a task to accomplish, but I sometimes just acknowledging and recognizing the ambiguity in a situation is part of the process of how to navigate that. And it does feel really uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Time-wise, do we want to share out a few more?
Yeah, maybe a few more, Claire, just a couple more. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One from Cynthia is when her children grew up and went to college, she really had to start thinking about her day-to-day life differently in terms of interests, priorities, and started attending design workshops to figure out how to navigate this time, kind of changing in her personal life. So started imagining different scenarios and signed up for new classes to just try different things with other people, such as art classes, Japanese classes, etc.
Sounds like that really fits the river metaphor. You don't know what's happening. You try these different ways to solve things. I think also, Leah, if I'm saying your name right, the same thing about that feeling of having to be an expert. That sometimes stops us from navigating ambiguity because we feel this pressure to like know everything. And sometimes when you acknowledge you don't know, but you're in this process of navigating the ambiguity of the situation, you're gaining expertise as you move through the challenge. And yeah, it is an adventure, Cynthia. Agree.
Wonderful. We have one more from Alejandro, who was in university and a professor told them to analyze the library and figure out if it was working well. And just understanding what the term working well meant definitely was a big question. So he started thinking about the ideal state versus the current state and collected data to then work on it to figure all of this out.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for sharing these. It shows like the broad range, like these are personal experiences, work related experience, relationship building, expertise, so many parts of the ambiguity journey.
All right, thanks everyone for sharing. It's great to see diverse perspectives there. Right now, let's reflect on your ambiguous story with simple post-it. Will you say your experience of navigating ambiguity falls under endure, engage, or embrace ambiguity? Please place it at either one of post-it and reflect on your story. We have one here, for example, I share that I endure ambiguity through bringing my vision of the creative team to life with a simple prototype at Miro, or I have embraced ambiguity by sharing the toolkits at Miroverse. So you can just drop a simple post-it at either one of the endure, engage, or embrace ambiguity.
I think, Frankie, it's interesting too that at different parts, as you move through solving a problem, you may be going back and forth with some things you are enduring. You may start to engage, embrace it, and then you may go back and forth. I think that's something that you're very much dependent on the context and the reaction you get to how you move forward as you solve the problem.
Yeah, that's right. How does knowing endure, engage, embrace ambiguity would help us better navigate ambiguity, Marin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a question that you'll answer as you go through that. There's the idea that if you recognize that that's a first step, like I know this, I'm in the middle of this not knowing process, that really helps. And then when you engage, you're like, what else could I do? It opens up different possibilities. And when you truly embrace it, that was when you get the depth of, am I solving the right problem? Am I using the right approach? Am I encouraging others to join me in understanding all the parameters of the problem? And I think as you shared, Frankie, with your explanation of how you tackle the problem, I think having the visual layout of Miro kind of gives you that way to collaboratively think about all the possibilities and see, where am I on this journey of navigating ambiguity?
Yeah, that's awesome. Do we have time for one or two share out?
Yeah, we have about 4
Oh,
minutes, so I think we could probably do 1 to 2.
all right. Do you see any interesting one, Claire?
Let's see. Looks like some people are still in progress of doing their stickies.
I think, and Allison pointing out too in our chat, talking about enduring and engaging, saying it can be uncomfortable, but digging in and trying different solutions can be the only way to clear up the ambiguity. And I think that's sort of having a prototyping mindset, like being willing to try things and learn from what doesn't work and what does work. So I think that is an important part. The more information you get, you're going to like move things forward in different ways. And then that is part of the journey, the experimentation part.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
We do have a few who've completed their stickies now. I'm happy to share.
Great.
Someone wrote that they deal with ambiguity by asking lots of questions of everyone around them and endures being slightly annoying, which I would say is not annoying. No question is a silly question, and that's how you get through it. So
it's being resourceful.
Absolutely. Another said, when I commit to something, it feels better because I like to achieve goals. It's more fun to go through the emerging experience with others who are on the same journey. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that is important too, Claire, because sometimes we want to hide, we want to just be the expert and not allow, like, we need help figuring things out. And that's okay to ask that, and recognizing that's the emotional component, but also it's a very practical, strategic way to move forward, is getting more input and insights. Maybe you haven't seen some part of a problem, but someone else can add to that.
Absolutely. Completely agree. And another one I really love in the embrace category is that any answer is possible, and it's just about developing different paths and making a decision. I think kind of understanding that there are multiple paths forward and you can make any which path work is a really great mindset to have as well.
Yeah. And something that we don't really do a lot, right? We almost want to focus on, we just need to get the right answer, right? But what is the right answer? Making sure it's the right problem, that matters.
Absolutely. Well, I know that we have about 1 minute left. Maureen and Frankie, are there any closing remarks that you'd like to share before we kind of send out all the links to everyone?
All right. Just to quickly share, thanks everyone for sharing and being so engaged in this. We also have some tools at Miroverse that help us better navigate ambiguity. One of it is Rethink Ambiguity. This is a workshop Brian and I has shared out. First of all, it helps us to recognize ambiguity, our emotions that's facing, and also making ambiguity as an opportunity for us to learn and grow, because it's a safe space like Miro that helps us develop the creative confidence through practicing it. In the future, we are also planning to develop new tools that is and strategies to make it. All right. Time's up. Sorry, my connection issue. And also reimagine ambiguity with these design strategies to gain clarity and confidence. This is something that we plan to do in future. But thanks everyone for joining, and these are the resources that we have shared in the chat.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks
Thank you
everyone.
for joining us.